Welcome to Open Mic Uncensored. I'm your host, Manju Gerber. And in this episode, I'll be speaking with an independent journalist, Jennifer Sparks, and we'll be discussing the latest legislation proposal that's at the state capitol. I hope you enjoy the show and thank you for watching.
Hi, Manju. How are you?
Good, good. So this is actually your first time on this new show.
Yeah.
And we had spoken before. I've been on your show, and I think I'm coming on what, next week or something like that.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right. So I wanted to talk about the latest that's going on up at the state capitol, especially with our let's start with this though. Um, the Democrats, this Connecticut Democrats have come out and said that their biggest priorities for this legislative term is going to be housing
Mhm.
and education.
Oh, God.
So let's take the education part
Okay.
because we have our favorite majority leader in the state Senate that came out with his bill.
Oh, yeah.
And okay, and let's share that, shall we? Okay,
Yeah.
so here it here it is.
Oh, isn't that lovely? Look at
Yes,
that.
the
SB
Senate Bill
3,
523.
5,
Yes.
523, SB
Yeah.
523 in all its wonderful glory.
Oh, yes. And he's very proud of it. So basically, what it says is this bill gives protection to the librarians so that if the parents come after them to say, you need to remove these books, um, they will be protected and will have to say no to the parents.
So I read through the bill and it specifically says
Yeah.
in there the language of this bill. I was just writing about this yesterday. The language of the bill specifically states criminal liability, like it's giving them immunity from something that could be perceived as criminal. And I read through the bill and I'm reading through one of the books. I forget the title. It might have been Let's Talk About It. I'm not sure which particular book it was. But within this book, there's a page, and I was doing a video myself about this yesterday, but in this book, there's a page where it specifically explains to kids how to upload pornography, how to pay for pornography, how
Mhm.
to join online
Mhm.
pornographic books,
Right.
and encourage people that pornography is perfectly fine, as long as you do it right, whatever that means.
Right.
This is to children. This isn't like you're talking like this is a sex book for adults who would
Adults,
be
right.
into that. Okay.
Exactly.
This is for kids. So, during Bob Duff's press conference last week, and the unfortunate part, I was streaming it live on Twitter, and I apologize, folks. I missed his early what he said early, right? I missed the juice. So I went back in and I got what he said, what he started his press conference off with. He starts it off with a phone call from an irate person. We don't know who this person is. They may not even be in the state of Connecticut, but the person is like swearing at him, saying they want to bash his brains in, and he calling him all kinds of names and whatnot. And then, of course, he uses the word porn, right? You're porn and groomer and all this stuff, which is fine if you say porn and groomer to him. That's as far as you should go. But he started talking about bashing his head in. He loves that, guys.
Oh, yeah. He
he
loves
he
the attention.
he loves the attention, and if it's negative attention where he could sit there and he takes this one call, and what he tries to do is dismiss the books, like the book I'm just talking about, which I believe that title is Let's Talk About It, which is a
Hmm.
very graphic
Very graphic.
sex book for
Right.
written for kids.
Right.
Now
Of
they'll
all
art
ages, by the
of
way, of
all
all
ages.
ages. Yes.
And I think these books are like across like the board and even primary grades and stuff. I was speaking with someone where yes, that book is in fact in like the primary grades there too. They could get that book. So that and basically using this call to start off his press conference. And I want to bring up another important point. What I realized, I found this out yesterday too, and I can't believe I didn't put the two together. Cece Mayer, her daughter is like, I believe, like the program director of NPR. She's got a bigwig position at NPR. And there's a video of her daughter, and I can't think of the daughter's first name. There's a video of her daughter talking about, it's just a really shocking video, and they're just talking about like misinformation. It was just this video needs to be seen. I wish I had it like up. I could like send it to you right now, but I just realized this like this morning that I put the two together that, oh, that's her mother, and she's on. So the NPR people who make ridiculous sums of money, like $400,000 a year working for NPR, my gosh, that government is treating you really nice, aren't they?
Right, right. Well, on the entire line of Bob Duff's bill, on the 27th of January, which is really just a few days ago, um, he had an event, or he attended an event that was hosted by the Free Moms Hugs
Oh
in
God.
Norwalk. Okay, so they had a drag queen story hour. And as you can see, I have some of the pictures. There he is in the blue sweater,
Look at
Senator
him.
Bob Duff.
Oh my
And
God.
there's one of the drag queens. Oh, look at that. How sweet, right?
Like this picture. Okay, if a picture could speak 1,000 words, right? A picture is worth 1,000 words. You look at this, and where is it in society that someone could think a grown man dressed up in woman's face around children somehow teaches some kind of tolerance? Like, who came up with this dark and twisted reality that we currently find ourselves in?
Well,
Because
talk
it doesn't
about
make
dark
sense.
and twisted. Well, sorry, Jen. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
No, no. Look at this picture, and it leaves me speechless, honestly.
No,
It
because for me, I look at this picture and I think, okay, is that what society thinks a woman actually looks like? I mean, look how much makeup that she had. Oops, sorry, it's the wrong. I kind of skipped too much. But yeah, it's just this is not a typical woman in how she dresses and presents herself, you
no, and
know.
it sends
And
such a weird message too. Like, what about, okay, so from the perspective of teaching your children about being wary of strangers, oh, somebody would say probably I'm doing the precursor to some kind of racism or something, but the reasonable parents know that you teach your children to just be aware of strangers. It doesn't have to do anything about race. A stranger is a stranger, okay? So when these kids are exposed to these men in dresses, I'm sorry. It's like back in the day, that'd be something you'd be like, you wouldn't teach your child to point their finger and be rude to somebody. You teach your child to be wary of strangers. And this kind of breaks that barrier. Like these strange men dressed in woman's face are safe and they're okay. And you can sit in their lap. I've seen children sitting in drag queens' laps, and that just completely makes me uncomfortable. A drag queen is, I had a gay friend in college. We were best buds. He was really cool. And he used to tell me about his life. And he would go to these drag shows and he said it's like this is years ago and I'm in college. And I don't want to talk about how many decades ago, but he talked about how it could be rough in being a single gay man in the bar scene and the drag queens and the whole bar life where these drag queens come from. That's where drag queens kind of they belong there. That's their whole thing. He would be like he would dress up in that drag face and that was like his world and what he was doing and we were friends. And that like it wasn't something that would be done with children. I wonder if I like saw him today what he would say about this, because this was, way before we'd ever thought we'd have drag queen story hour and have that kind of happening in life.
I don't think there ever has been a library in Connecticut or any book in general in the state of Connecticut that has been banned. There has not been anything like that. So why not just use common sense and say, okay, is this book age appropriate? for these age level kids.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all. It's very simple, or before you take the book out, make sure there's consent from the parent. We don't have to step on someone else's liberties on how they raise their kids, but it's just, you can't just have a blanket law that says, okay, we're going to protect librarians so that if a parent comes after them, they come first. The librarians actually are the ones, the head librarian, that decides which books goes on the shelf.
Yeah, and it does. The Family Institute of Connecticut put out some their interpretation of the bill, saying that it is going to usurp local control, like in the Board of Education, which we already
Yes.
don't have a lot of local control in the Board of Ed, honestly. And I found that out recently that the Board of Ed answers to the state of Connecticut ultimately, even though it's elected through your local town, but that's ultimately who the Board of Ed will answer to.
Well, they answer to CABE, which is the
Yes.
Connecticut Association of the
Oh
Boards
my
of Ed.
gosh, I'm so glad you brought that up because I just stumbled across Cabe, right? And yeah, so Cabe is definitely into this gender bender ideology for children. Like they have it all
And
over their website.
the CTLA, which is the Connecticut Library Association, which works
Okay.
hand in hand with the American Library Association.
Yes.
So when you have these types of bills that are being put out by Connecticut Democrats, especially in this case, Bob Duff, this usually is what happens.
Yeah.
They sort of formulate something together. Now, this bill actually went down in defeat last session,
Yes, it
and it
did.
has risen back up again like the Bride of Frankenstein.
I'm so glad you said that. It was on the tip of my tongue. Yes, it's
I mean, thank you, Bob Duff.
he's the gift that keeps on giving.
Oh,
And
I know.
he doesn't I'm just so surprised that we're in a place right now where we have these legislators like Bob Duff who are really hostile to constituents like us. He as the Senate Majority Leader, even though I'm not in his district, you may not be in his district, he represents all of these legislators, whether we're in their districts or not. They represent all of the citizens of this state. And so that the way that they treat people who do not agree with them, they'll take one caller who just says a bunch of really outrageous things. And we don't even know if that person is from Connecticut. We don't know if it's just somebody that's trolling him. It could just be a really upset parent. And I just want to like stress this to parents, kill them with kindness, just shine back at them what it is they're doing because it speaks volumes of what they're doing, and kill them with kindness. Never ever call up Duff and leave some crazy message like that. And even online, I think it's best for all of us to kind of keep it like perspective that they'll take something and run with it to try and just totally kill the argument. You can't have a public debate. Like what you're saying is very reasonable. Why not have like a permission slip if it's say at the high school level, some of these books, right? Or you got some kind of knowledge that the kid is going to take these books out, something to have protections, understanding that this is pornographic material. Yesterday, my video on Twitch, of all places, like I joined Twitch thinking that would be like a more free platform, but Twitch took my video down and suspended me for 7 days.
You're
Reading the books that I'm discussing right now in my podcast. I had and so shout out to the Greenwich Patriots because I was using their article on Substack to show because they did a great article where they go
Yes.
through all the books. I think Sentinel had that one out there too. It's the Connecticut Sentinel.
Yeah.
So those images that they had, and they like put little stars on like the really like
Yes.
explicit parts, which was one of the reasons I was using their article. Family Institute of Connecticut, they just had it all up there, right? And just I couldn't even use that in my video. I was afraid to. So I used the other article where it's got it kind of like blocked out. And in a video I show of my own work, it's like, the imagery is kind of like you could tell what it is. But anyway, they censored me because it's a pornography that, and they took my video down and put me in like a 7-day timeout. So far,
Wow.
I mean X and Twitter. So far, Twitter, X, whatever, and Facebook, which is a joke. I don't even know why I bothered putting my stuff out there. Nothing ever goes anywhere. It's still heavily censored. But so far, I haven't been haven't that video taken down, but it's really surprising for pornography. And it's such a shock because you know, would never ever show pornography or even be interested in talking about that. And what I'm talking about is books in our children's library in schools that
Right.
whether your children are in school or not, our kids are being exposed to this, and we're paying for it. We're
Oh, yeah.
paying for these books to be in there with our kids, teaching them how to upload pornography, to be really promiscuous. I mean, that the school doesn't have a place. They don't have a right to do this. This is not okay. It's not teaching anyone tolerance. If anything, it's like debasing our society and teaching children. Then one of the scary statistics I recently read that teen porn was like rising at an exponential rate, and is like there's more teen porn now on the internet for free than there is any other kind of porn. Let that
Yeah.
sink in, right? That's
Yeah.
I like do you really want to send your children to school? You send your precious kids to school and then they put something out online that's there forever, or they're exposed to this pornography, they get terrible body image. Next thing you know, they don't want to be women because women are really exploited in porn. Men are too, but women are really exploited in porn. Imagine a girl being exposed to porn, then deciding she hates her body because what she's seeing in these pornographic videos, from my understanding, not my cup of tea, they're pretty bad. And so some of the kids who detransitioned said they were into anime porn and all this kind of really weird stuff that I would never in a million years imagine that's a part of our young people's world these days. If anything, we need to teach them how to be strong, to avoid those things, and the reality of what porn can lead to. But anyway, rapid onset gender dysphoria is in girls specifically is a huge, talk about public health, is a huge public health issue because these kids in droves are like saying they want to bind their breasts and have double mastectomies. That is to me the one of the most scary things. So that is disfiguring. It is something that these young girls they don't understand consciously how this could affect their entire lives. This is coming out of not my words saying this experience, but detransitioners, specifically young women who are now in their 20s. There's a girl, Prisha, who by a miracle had a baby. And she had a double mastectomy at 14 years
Mhm.
old.
Yeah.
And when she had her baby, by a miracle, she couldn't even believe it because she detransitioned. She stopped taking all the hormones. She regretted getting this surgery. She has no breasts. They were removed. And she has permanent damage from the Lupron that she was on with one of those strange kind of like voices that don't really sound like a man, but they sound like there's been some damage to your vocal cords.
Well, what
And
happens is that that's like a type of puberty blocker,
yes,
but the FDA never gave it approval
yes,
to use it
exactly.
as a puberty blocker because it was only used for endometriosis, for treating prostate cancer, and for treating prisoners, in prison for castration.
Yeah.
So,
So
but you could just
it
imagine you're putting
castrates
some
you.
weird drug in a young body
A
and you don't
young
even know
growing
what the
body.
effects are.
Yeah, no, nobody knows. It's not
It
even
was
FDA
off label.
approved.
That's what they
It's
did,
off
the
label.
FDA. Yeah,
They
used it
made
as
such
off
a big
label.
deal about ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. Let that one sink in for a second there, right? So it's the craziness around this is just mind-boggling. But the young woman, a woman's breast tissue is made up of mammary glands. Hello, we have these breasts. They're mammary glands. We're mammals. And so there's all these little glands within the breast. She couldn't nurse her own baby. and it pained her a lot. Emotionally and actually biologically, physically, because there was still tissue in her growing, developing young body that grew still with milk ducts and those glands. So, what would happen as she had her baby, because it's pregnancy, birth, and lactation, she couldn't lactate. The milk had nowhere to go because she had no
Mm.
more nipples. I mean, I hate to be graphic like this, but these people need to hear this conversation that
Yes.
they're promoting this type of ideology that leads to here, and how, and the pain, and she suffered. She got physically sick from it and emotionally sick from it because it reminded her that what she did to herself, and how the adults in her life, and she says this, I feel like the adults in my life failed me. And she
Well, they
says,
did. They
yeah,
did.
she, I feel like they failed me. They'd said that, she had some mental health issues, she had trauma, she had sexual abuse in her history. Nobody bothered to question this teen or give her actual mental health therapy, teach her how to love her body, that she's not born in the wrong body. How is it bigotry or hateful to say, teach a child, no, you're not born in the wrong body. Your body is the only body you're ever going to have. You're beautiful just the way you are. If you want to express yourself as more like of a masculine personality, fine, be a tomboy. Like, why are we doing this to our children and promoting it as something that is good when the reality is that these children grow up and the severity of their choices comes back to haunt them, like this young woman, Prisha, who fortunately had a healthy baby, and she's amazed that she could. Some of these kids may that have had these treatments and double mastectomies may never be able to have children. Some of them have gone the full whole gender affirming care road. And some of these girls have had this thing called medioplasty. I don't even want to get into the details of this because it's so grotesque. But medioplasty, go look it up, take a peek at that stuff. That's really grotesque what they do to the young woman's body to create a phallus, a biologically, surgically Frankenstein phallus on a poor young girl, taking parts of her leg or her arm and rolling it into a flesh tube and calling that a penis. I mean, this is nuts. They have to put a catheter in it. And they have to remove part of like the body's organs and stuff. And they do this weird stuff. They put imagine where you have to, go to the bathroom, and now there's this flesh tube with a catheter in it because you say you were born in a wrong body and a surgeon developed a skin tube for you to whatever. And some of
Right.
them, I think,
Allegedly.
some of them, first of all, we have an army of social workers now in the state of Connecticut. And one of the things is with these social workers, they're like they're trained in mental health. They're not the Jordan Petersons of the world. You're not getting real clinical psychology in this day and age. You're getting a kind of Velveeta cheese version of it, honestly. And I mean, look, it's just, it is what it is. This like, shout out to folks that do social work. There's some great social workers out there that really help. My husband works with a population of people that need a lot of social services, elders and stuff who have mental illness. These social workers work really, really hard. So I'm not trying to disparage that. But the common theme today is that these social workers are in the school and they are trained in the CDCs. How does the CDC come into play here, right?
And for a doctor to do something like this when their Hippocratic oath is do no harm, and you do something like that, that's irreversible, you
It,
know?
I know a few women who have had double mastectomies due to cancer. And one of the women documented it online. It was so tragic watching her go through that surgery. She had the double mastectomy, young woman, and she's gotten through her cancer. She's such an inspiration. And she documented it. And one of the things, I don't think people realize this. Okay, I've always thought it very traumatizing for a woman to have a double mastectomy, right? And so what one of the things I didn't realize at the time is like the physical, like how long it takes to heal from that surgery and the drains. So these drains, once they remove the breast, there's these drains. This is a massive surgery on young kids who have healthy breasts. Now, there's another woman I know from many years ago who had also had a double mastectomy, and I'm going to share her story, and you'll see why with this little story here. She had a double mastectomy. She had to stop nursing her baby because she developed a serious breast cancer, and it was all over her, and so she got the double mastectomy. She was recently, a couple years ago, in Middletown. Her children are now old. Her child, she had one child. Her child's now older, and she's very active in Middletown. And there is a young girl in the picture. She's there, and she's like, it's Pride Day, and there's a young girl wearing a cape. It's like a sheer cape, and you could see that she had the scars where her breasts were. And in the photo, you see the woman in the background who I know personally had that surgery because I know her. And you see the young woman in the front with the scars and the woman behind her and a little boy looking out at her with this really horrified look on his face. And the thing with children are they'll notice things. They'll notice something is wrong. Why does she have those scars like that on her chest, right? And you could see the little boy's face. And I had shared this picture, but I blocked out the children. I blocked out everybody's face, and especially the children. So the picture didn't have as much power without the child's face. And of course, if you don't know the whole story about the woman behind her in the background having a double mastectomy due to cancer, and the woman in front of her having a double mastectomy due to mental illness, and I just was irate that how can she, as a grown woman, stand there in support of this type of surgery on young, healthy women. She had went through it herself and had to stop breastfeeding her own child for cancer, which has saved her life. And then to be here promoting these young girls to go through that same surgery like that without even a thought in the world. Here you are standing here supporting this, putting your thumbs up and approval for this to be happening to young girls with perfectly healthy breasts. It's an atrocity, in my opinion. Barbaric. Will go down in history with lobotomies, leeches, and formaldehyde.
Well, the problem, I think, stems from the fact that you have these big donors, which are either
Mm,
organizations or individuals, like the Pritzker family, Bill
mm-hmm.
Gates Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the Tides Foundation,
Yep.
um, the Rothschilds, I think. Allegedly, these people and huge organizations are the ones that fund this idea of gender dysphoria and mutilation, genital mutilation. I think it's a way for them to disrupt the strong family unit.
Yeah, for
It's a
sure.
way for them to get their population control, or I don't know what, but it's some sort of chaos that they are trying to foment.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
when you have places like that that then funnel the money to WPATH, which is
Mm,
one of the premier institutions for gender, dysphoria and transitioning. And then they also funnel money to the WHO, to the United Nations,
mhm.
American Medical Association. I mean, you name it, to all politicians, then what they do is that money then goes into training counselors and therapists and physicians, that are in private practice. And that is what happens. It's like a little bit of a chain. So by the time a child who may be emotionally depressed because maybe they're being bullied or they feel sad about something they're in, some sort of emotional state. that their parents don't know how to handle. You
Hmm.
bring them to this therapist, or
Oh,
the school says, hey, maybe you should try therapy for your child because for some reason he's failing, not doing well in school. He looks depressed, not really participating in class. So all of this perfect storm happens. You bring it to your child for help from a therapist, and guess
yep.
what they say? Well, I really think it's because they're in the wrong body, and that's what they're trying to tell me. So then you get this entire what?
This
And
is
as
so
parents,
intense.
what do you do?
Oh, I
At
think
that time.
Yeah, I think parents are in a really bad place where, and a lot of detransitioners say this, that they totally feel for their parents, and a lot of them apologize to their parents because their parents didn't know, and they're basically being told that your son or daughter, usually it's the girl these days, and boys are still transing too, but a lot of like young girls, like it's like an epidemic of girls are rapid onset gender dysphoria doing these drastic things. And then you're told you're like, what's the detransitioner? Chloe Cole. She did a
Yeah,
really good, there was a powerful interview with Jordan Peterson, who's a really great clinical psychologist.
right.
Um, he did an interview with her, which was like what a therapist should have been doing with her in the first place. It was really a powerful I feel like I was in the room with them as she was having, some serious healing going on and just recognizing it. And he was going deep with her about all of the things that led her to that place. He's actually being a real doctor for her, post trauma. And what we're getting today is in clinical psychology. Okay. We're not getting clinical trained psychologists. You're getting social workers
Yes.
who are
Who
trained.
have an agenda.
They have a thing, and this is here in the state of Connecticut. I'll never forget when I passed this bill. At first, when I heard the bill, I thought, oh, school climate. Is that like they're going to be pushing climate, the green agenda kind of thing? That's what I'm thinking, right? The school climate. Well, no, that's the CDC's terminology. So there is some really sketchy stuff. I wrote about that in my Substack and did a video on it last year where they use the classroom as a way to promote public health messaging, to promote this gender ideology, to promote all because where you just said with all these foundations, the Tides Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, the UN, the WHO, all of this, and then people would say, why are all those organizations doing that? What could that be? Oh, just let's follow the money. And the money is from this billionaire class like Martine Rothblatt is the founder of Sirius Radio, and he's an interesting character. And he has a thing that he has a mind cloud, and he believes he's going to be able to inject your mind data. Like if you give all the AI all your data, it'll make a mind cloud of you. And he's actually collecting data from anybody who wants to have a mind cloud. He's got a robot effigy of his wife who's still alive. Wrote a book about, he called it the apartheid, the sex apartheid, like basically like our biological, um, immutable biological reality is an apartheid. And he wrote that he's written extensively on the transgenderism. He's a big time billionaire, also involved heavily in the pharmaceutical world. And yeah, his mission is to live forever in the mind cloud, which will be implanted. This is transhumanism stuff, which I wanted to make that connection too with the transgender agenda, is also transhumanism, experimenting and using these kids to experiment with what they can do with the human body and fooling around with it and even merging machine and body together. And you'll see that's very common now. They had a video yesterday, it was really, really bizarre. Two men dressed as like kind of like women, very effeminate, like but like mannish, and maybe they were non-binary. Two men who purchased their babies, and it's really weird. And and you just see the video, it just speaks for itself that these two men with their infant twins that they purchased, and it just gives me a really awful feeling, you know. Like, so my point being is like women are being placed like, you know, you could just, you know, rent your womb for how much you want to rent it for, and you know, sell your baby. You know, I don't know. It's just really weird. But they want to even make it so they can basically take our biology away from, take away our humanity, or they could have like, I think a future that these types envision is like where babies are grown in pods, you know, and there's
Oh
no
yeah.
to get a license to have a baby. I mean, look what China did to people. They had a one child policy for a long time, and they would physically force women, no matter how pregnant they were, they would take their baby from them if they were over the allotted amount for a child. And all that had to happen in China. And this is like, not that this is here right now in our lifetime. They rescinded a little bit. Now they can have two, but they forced women to have abortions even up into the ninth month. And then they take that child and murder that child and do God knows what with the organs and everything else, because there's a thing with that as well,
Oh yeah.
where we are nothing more than like kind of like cattle to be managed, and there is no identity. You have no, you're just become part of the Borg. You're no woman, you're no man, you're just part of the Borg
Right.
eating crickets.
Well, I think this whole terminology of gender affirming care, it's going to slowly start seeing its way out the door. Um, which it should be because you're a child. You
Yeah,
know, no child cannot sign a consent form because they don't know the risks and benefits. They don't know what's going to happen to them 10 years, 15 years, 20 years down the road when they decide to have a baby of their
yeah,
own or a family. Where is that intimacy? Can they even have sex? No, a lot of them cannot, which is really sad. So the gender affirming care, like you said, it starts off with the gender pronouns,
yep,
which a lot of these books introduce kids to.
yep,
And unfortunately, a lot of, school administrators and teachers will go along with that. Oh, that's really important. But there's only two genders, as we know. That egg will develop into a boy or into a girl, and it's all chromosomal determined, you
yeah.
know?
All
So
is. I don't
it's
understand what the argument is.
no, and this whole thing with puberty blockers, my gosh, I mean, I will never understand how you can be able to give drugs, especially when you have a political side that talks about eating organic food or staying healthy, or we don't want any sort of you know, cleaning products in our house that will cause some sort of toxicity in the lungs or, the skin, anything like that. But yet you're so willing, and I shouldn't say everyone, but there are some that are willing to put pharmaceutical drugs in a little person's body and not understand what the real effects are.
Yeah. And
That's just mind-boggling to me.
it's very mind-boggling. You know what? It's not even just that they're taking a pill, which is bad in itself. They're being
Oh,
injected with these drugs.
that's
They're
right.
pumped full of these drugs,
That's right.
injected into their little growing bodies. You don't pause biology. That's like saying, you know, nature is God and God is nature. Like that's it. You cannot write the code of nature. We could argue all day long, and I'd love to have this conversation about, like, you know, with my friends who are atheists and we get into nature. Well, you know, where does it all ultimately come from? The human design, this amazing consciousness that we have. You know, it's God, you know, this God consciousness, this ability to think and be coherent, and you know, and how each human expresses that connection to God is a beautiful thing. But nature is God and God is nature, and we as humans are not God, though we have consciousness. And our children are in the crosshairs of a culture war. That's where we're really at. This is a culture war. This is a war for the bodies and minds of our children. This is a war to destroy our free country, where we have a constitutional republic is what we should have, or it's very
Mm.
corrupted and full of a mess. And our here we are in the state of Connecticut, the Constitution state,
Right.
which at
Right,
one point
exactly.
I loved Connecticut so
So
much.
ironic.
And now I'm like, what happened to my beautiful state of Connecticut that once was like just a really good place to be, that had a lot of opportunity without that stupid income tax? Thanks, Lil Weicker. May you rest in peace. Thanks for really, really putting the nail in the coffin of the Constitution state, because that's how they built this bureaucratic state that we're in now, that has like, so parents need to be aware that the whole school, whole child is in their schools, that this is interwoven in all of the curriculum, that there are social workers in your child's school. There are, in fact, in the school, my children have all graduated. I just recently learned that my school now, and a lot of schools in Connecticut are starting to have this. We have a clinic at our school now. Any child can go to this clinic and get medical care. So I
Right.
want to dive a little bit deeper into that legislation, but I do believe that they can get certain medical care without parents' knowledge or
Oh,
consent.
yeah, that's very true. And it is happening in California right now,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, which is really scary. Um, you know, in that kind of sense, I think it was the United Nations that was pushing that type of philosophy with the
yeah,
whole body, whole system, whole child, you
yes,
know,
yeah.
type thing, unfortunately. Um, but again, if you look at puberty blockers and the next step, and also with the puberty blockers, I mean, it causes your bone to demineralize. So
Yeah,
you do have osteoporosis symptoms because when you
absolutely.
start to thin out your bones, these are little things that people really don't talk about. Well, you know, what are the risks of taking these types of things on a child? You know, and it's not even just it's the bones, it's, you know, um, testicular growth or development. I mean, it can wreak havoc later
It
on
really can.
when they want to even have transition surgery, you
They
know.
can't. Well, anyone could go and this poor young soul, Jazz Jennings. Anyone can take a look at just even a couple of the episodes, and there's
Yes.
definitely there's a couple of content creators that I follow. XT Atlantis, I think, is one of them, and she does these commentaries. She was young, and she's lesbian, and she was transgender for a minute in college. She went to Berkeley. She was at
Huh.
Berkeley College, and she really gets in deep into this stuff. She's really, really good with the content that she creates. And so she talks about her own experience with the pornography that's a big part of this that people don't really ever hear about. And she was talking also about they have like it's really strange. So in a lot of the trans communities, they have like these it's like a cult in many ways, where she talks about how detransitioning, how of course, and we've seen it, they totally, reject it out of all the people that they know. So one of these kids wakes up one morning and says, "Oh my God, I made a mistake and I want to get my life back. I'm a woman or I'm a man." And sometimes it's too late for them and they've already had the surgery or they've been on the puberty blockers for so long. One of them had uh, what the heck do they call it? A prolapse, like a vaginal prolapse, like something that can happen to women when they get older. Not typical, but something where it could happen. But her uterus was like, should have a whole hysterectomy, should an entire hysterectomy. And it wasn't that she chose to do that because she was detransitioning and that was happening to her. And so she did have the double mastectomy, was on the Lupron for so long that she had to have a full hysterectomy. Now she's got major health problems and like your bones can become brittle. You get they're the list of health complications are insane. And I don't understand how this is happening right now. And what's really scary about the um the school-based health centers, I'm pretty sure they're offering gender affirming care, or
Right.
at least access to these services through
Yes.
our schools.
Oh, I'm sure. Yes.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And we just got this bill. This bill passed in like, during the COVID era. It's like everything, everything after 2020 is just like, oh, okay, post-COVID. When this all really started to rear its head, I mean, before COVID, did they have drag queens? So they did. They were starting to. I was starting to notice this. It's very little bit. It was like trickling.
Well, you know what started this whole thing was when President Obama was in office, because
Yeah.
he started this whole unisex or unigender bathrooms.
Yes, I remember
And
that.
remember, he would tell all the states, that you need to start having, um, you know, bathrooms for all genders to use. Where I have to say, a lot of gay and lesbian grown people, they do not approve of this. A lot
No,
of
they
them. I'm
don't.
not going to say
Yeah.
all, but a lot of them, because they feel that their identities are being taken away.
Yeah.
They feel like they're very comfortable in their bodies.
Yeah, and that there's been a lot of talk about that. I really appreciate the work that Gays Against Groomers has done,
Yeah,
because
they're
even like
phenomenal.
with the Pride situation, that Middletown has this huge Pride parade, and their parade. I haven't seen anything too outrageous and crazy, but like if you get into like bigger cities, it's like you see these grown men who are like naked basically with some kind of like animal covering their private, like whatever. And it's like creepy. It's like, why do you feel you need to do that? Why are you how is this okay? And why are we promoting this where it's wonderful to see a topless girl with scars on her chest from where her breasts were? That's not something to be celebrated. That's actually really sad. And you wonder what kind of trauma this human being has been through. What's wrong with teaching children to love their body as it is, gay, straight, or whatever? Just love your natural, beautiful, God-given body.
God-given, healthy body,
Your body is so
you know.
beautiful. Like they say love is love. Yes, love is love. Love who you be
And
you
these are
in your
healthy
body.
body parts. Remember that. I see the time. And we're already there to like an hour. I know we love talking. All right. Well, hopefully you'll come back on again in a couple weeks or so, and
Yeah,
we'll just touch
absolutely.
base on all of there was so much more stuff that's going on right now with the illegal immigrants, with ICE coming in to all
Right.
these different towns. Then you've got these parole boards that are releasing convicted pedophiles and actually giving them talking points on how to avoid deportation, even though these criminals are basically saying, I may do it again. I mean, it's just nuts. So there's so many things that we need to just keep talking about to let people be
Absolutely.
aware,
Absolutely.
you know.
Absolutely. All
But
right.
thank you again so much for coming on, Jen. I really
Thank-
appreciate it.
I appreciate it too, Manju.
All right. See ya.
Bye-bye.